Hello folks, back here today at the LT70 Woodmizer. Uh, for you, it was just a split second watching the video from what I was working on before, but for me it's been about 3 weeks. I've had some other things to do. The first video I did was on replacing the glass in my excavator, and I had a big mowing job to go do for a guy with that, and so I went and did that job for him. And then his sister, which lived beside him, had some work she wanted done. So, and that's kind of how this business works. You'll go work for someone, and then there'll be a neighbor down the road or a cousin 3 miles away or something like that, and they'll be like, yeah, can you come do this for me? And honestly, for my business, I don't even advertise. That might be bad. I've never ran into a situation where I felt like I needed to advertise. It's always been a word of mouth type thing, and you know, I'm very particular about my work. I try to do the absolute best job I can, and I think people appreciate that. But anyway, getting back to the subject at hand is finishing the service work on the LT70. I've got to drill holes for grease fittings. I figured out how I'm going to do that. I'm going to show you how I'm going to do that. If I can get it out now. This is the part that I had to weld that had the broken weld on it. If you remember in the last video series, that weld was broken. And so, right here. And so what I did, I welded it and then I chucked it in the lathe and I turned it down, tried to make it a little bit more presentable, I guess you would say. But in one of these clips that you've watched, I've explained welds and how just because it's a pretty weld doesn't mean that it's a strong weld. And, you know, that's not the prettiest weld. I'm sure there's a lot of people out there who's going to say, man, that's a pile of junk. But that weld will hold. It won't break. And that's what I need on a sawmill. I need stuff to hold, not break. I'm trying to make money with this thing. I'm not wanting to work on it all the time, which that's what I'm having to do. But anyway, we're going to install this. This goes here. This is one of the short stops when you're cutting short logs. You flip a stop up, and you'll see that in just a few minutes. But I'm going to go ahead and probably go ahead and install it and then paint it once it's installed. I've got some other areas that I want to paint as well. So let's get to it. All right, I figured out how I'm going to fix these grease fittings that I was talking about yesterday. This one and all these in here. I figured out how I'm going to fix it without having to remove anything. And more than likely somebody was shouting at the computer or TV, whatever you're watching this on your phone, and was about to say the same thing that I'm getting ready to say. What I'm going to do is I'm going to go with the arms all the way, these stops all the way down. Some of the grease fittings I got in here, like this one, is on the very bottom. That's crazy. I mean, that just doesn't make any sense to me whatsoever. That one right down there is straight, and it's right behind the hydraulic box. That needs to be a 90 degree. You know, just simple things like that. But how I'm going to fix it, I'm going to come in with a punch. I'm not going to worry about these. And I'm going to punch me, center punch some points on this. And I'm going to re-drill it while this is still on the shaft. And yes, the drill bit will go down into the shaft, just a tiny amount. And then I'll use a bottom tap to tap it. And then I'll put the grease fitting straight up. Put one here, and there's not one here on this cylinder, and the cylinder probably needs more than that. I'll put one on the cylinder. I'll take that arm right there off. I've actually had this thing off 3 times, and I'll get into that into another video. Welds breaking on this 3 times, but I think that'll work. We'll see what happens. All right, if you remember before, we was talking about the crazy placement of these grease fittings and how they just use press-in grease fittings, like right here. That's a press-in grease fitting, and here is supposed to be one. You can just, I'm trying to get the camera down. There you go. You can see that hole. But I've had several of those things to fall out. And like there's a grease fitting down here. You know, that one down here is not too bad. But some of these are really hard to get to. And they're press in and they're coming out. So what I was going to do was take this arm off and take it home and put it in the drill press and drill a hole through it and tap it and put new grease fitting in it. This arm here is not the problem. This arm here is the problem. And the reason why it's the problem is because the only way that will come out is to remove the hydraulic box. And that is a major, major, major undertaking. And I don't want to do that. So I thought about it, and here's what I'm going to do. Right here's another grease fitting that's missing. Right here. Can't even see the hole for it, but anyway, there's supposed to be one there. So what I'm going to do, I'm going to take the drill and I'm going to drill my holes straight down. And I know it's going to go into that shaft. There's a shaft in there like this. I know it's going to go into the shaft just a little bit. I don't think it's an issue. I'm just trying to get down enough through this piece of tubing to where I can tap a hole for a grease fitting. I mean, I'm only going to be going into that shaft a 1/16 of an inch, maybe. So I think that's a whole lot better alternative than having to tear this whole hydraulic box out. Here's some more of this good paint. That's what I'm telling you. That is raw metal right there. There is no primer under this paint whatsoever. So those of you that have bought LT70 mills or any Woodmizer mill, I'm hoping yours got primer, because mine did not. But mine was built right around COVID, and they were spitting these things out as hard as they could. And I don't know if they just skimped on that or what, but they didn't prime it. So let's get started drilling some holes. For the next few minutes, I'm going to be drilling holes, and I've got to have a generator to do that. I don't have any power down here yet. And so it's going to be loud and make a lot of noise. You will not hear me talking. I'm not going to record that. I'll record the footage, but I'll be back with you when we get all the holes drilled. Using just a spring-loaded punch. boys, I tell you, you know when you get through that piece of tubing right there, because that piece of steel underneath it is hardened steel. And that's what that silver piece right there is. That's hardened steel. That bit wouldn't even touch it. But I got me a, even though there's one already down there, you can see it right here. I went ahead and drilled a hole there because it'd make it a lot easier to grease. So I got hole here, hole there. Got two here. I started to drill it right there, but that's too close to the end. And when you grease, it's just gonna push it all out the end. Need to grease it back here. Got one down there. And if somebody can explain this to me, put it in the comments. Out of all these grease fittings Woodmizer put in here, right here's an eyelet on a cylinder that operates the stops going up and down. That's a cylinder that does it. Well, when that cylinder extends, this pin, you can't see it, but it's the same pin that I'm greasing here, is rotating in the cylinder eyelet. Why didn't they put a grease fitting in this? There's no grease fitting in it. And in certain ways, this probably needs grease the most because this is where all the pressure is. And I don't understand it. If somebody is smarter than I am, please in the comments tell me where I'm wrong. But anyway, I can fix it, more than likely. If I can't fix it, it probably can't be fixed. And there's been a few things that I've tackled that I couldn't fix. And I just had to quit. But let's tap these holes and get the grease fittings in. Okay, guys. During this clip here, you're going to see me try to pull the pin that's holding that arm that's got the grease fittings in it out of the sawmill. That pin right there where I'm trying to pry it out. And the reason why is because I broke the tap off in the hole trying to tap the hole for the grease fitting. And I had all that recorded, but somehow, somewhere, that one got lost. And that's probably the most important, or one of the most important clips in this whole video. But that's what's going on here. I've decided I'm going to have to take all this apart, take all these arms out, to properly drill and tap these holes. The tap broke in the piece I'm trying to get out right there, so you may hear me say something about taking the tap out, and that's what I'm referring to. So I'm gonna stop talking and start talking back in the video. I take it all the way out, because if I don't, when I drive that end of that tap, it's going to be on the inside of the tube, and then when I drive the rod back in, it's going to be on the end of the rod up in here. So I'm going to go ahead and drive it on out. It may be fun to get it all back together. I'm thinking maybe before I do that, maybe I should try to tie that up with something. Let me think about that a second. All right, I just took me a ratchet strap and strapped it around, hooked it on the end of the mill, and took the other end and just wrapped it around the piece that I don't want it to fall. And just wrapped it around the bunk. It's probably going to get it out of alignment, or make the holes out of alignment when I drive that pin out, but that's not that big a deal. I can get it lined back up. The hard thing was all that metal falling down and trying to hold all that up. So I think it's easier to hold it up than it is to try to get it back up. Oh wow, I made that a lot. I just pulled that pin completely out of that when I put that ratchet strap on there. Well, to not being greased in 2 years, It don't look bad at all. And the reason why it hadn't been greased is because there hadn't been a grease fitting in it. Now, the only problem with that ratchet strap being like that is it's right in the way, as usual. Maybe I can get that out. Sorry guys, I don't mean to block the shot, but I can't get in from the other side. Wow, that still ain't wanting to come out. That's one bad thing about working on these sawmills. There is nowhere to lay your tools that's not going to get knocked off. You know, I don't see a single place on that pin to where that tap touched it. Well, maybe right there. It's got a little scratch place on it, but I don't know if that's from that tap. Well, I think eventually it'll just go on through, but it's in such a hard place to try to get an angle on it. That pin is not touching that tap at all. So, with that being said, I mean, if it was, you could feel it, but it's not touching it at all. With that being said, I think I'm just going to leave it in there. I've got to do some more work on this sawmill one day. I'll talk about it a little bit more later. But when I do, I've got to take it up to the junked up shop, shed, and do some welding on it. And at that point, I might try to weld a nut on it and get that out. But I think right now, I'm gonna pull the pin back out, and I'm just going to drill me another hole beside it and tap a new hole, and I'll just get that out later. Let's try this tap where I ground it and see if it's going to work. All right, I'm going to do something that I do not encourage anyone to do. Well, I can't because I ain't got no power. But what I'm going to do, I'm going to take the generator and crank it. I'm going to take this drill and see if I can get that tap started down in the hole with the drill. And go very, very easy, or the same thing will happen again. Well, folks, just like with every other project I get into, this one just got a lot harder. I went ahead and tapped those two grease fittings here, one here and one there. And this one over here, technically, I guess you could say it took grease. It shot it out of that back hole where that old fitting was. But that one wouldn't. That's all the grease that come out of it. And I got one of these lock and lube couplers on my grease gun everybody just raves about. I think that's the biggest piece of junk I've ever seen, because it's not like it hooks onto the fitting right. It just leaks grease around it. I've got a just an old plain one that works better. But for whatever reason, that thing's not taking grease. And so that means I'm gonna have to pull that freaking hydraulic box. I was looking at it, I think I can just pull the bolts out of it and lower it down. I'm not real sure how I'm gonna lower it yet. Probably gonna have to get the tractor down here and wrap a strap around it and lower it down, because it's got to go down. This is the hydraulic box. It's got to go down far enough to get that pin to slide that way in order to get all this off. Once that happens, there's some snap rings and things like that that's got to come off. But I mean, it's relatively simple, I think, but nothing else has been real simple either. But I'm gonna get started. Well, folks, I just decided to remove that whole stop bracket and all that where I broke the tap off in it. It's all right here. That's part of it. Oh, here's the other part. This is the stop, obviously. This is the pivot right here for the stop. And I wanted you to look at this. That's my pocket knife. Those two pieces of paint come off of this right here. This paint just flakes off. You know, you shouldn't be able to do that with a dull pocket knife. My pocket knife's so dull it would cut hot butter. You know, the paint's completely off the bottom of it. I realize some of you guys is probably watching this video and you may have stumbled across it on YouTube, and you may have ordered an LT70 or another Woodmizer mill. It don't have to be an LT70, it could be any Woodmizer mill. I mean, look at this right here. It just, sorry, it's paint. I don't mean to discourage you at all. I don't mean to. And I'm sorry if I do. But that's what you're going to expect. Unless they have changed their paint. And I bought a 2017 LT50, and this is a 2021 LT70. And both my mills were the same way. And I mean, this mill now, when I bought this mill, it was $75,000. This is a LT70 wide, super hydraulic. I think now they're getting up close to $90,000. That's crazy. I mean, there's two things about this mill that I like. I've already said it. I'll say it again. I really like the fact that it runs on that monorail, and the set works are the best in the industry. Other than that, I don't know if I'd buy another one. I would look very hard at a Cook's, which I did look at the Cook's mills one time, and they look like they're okay, but they look a little anemic to me. The frame looks a little bit underbuilt. But I would also look at a Baker. But enough of that. I've got that one off there. Took me about 30 minutes. I'm going to go and get all these parts fixed. I'm going to go ahead and weld up the holes where I drilled that extra hole, get that tap out, weld that up, clean these parts up, get the holes drilled and tapped for grease fittings. We'll do all that. And I may go ahead and put this one back in before I take this one out, because I don't want to get my parts crossed. They may not be exactly the same, and man, if you get one in there it's not supposed to go in that spot, it's going to be a nightmare. But sorry I didn't film that. My phone has been dead. I had to charge it. It was fairly uneventful, a lot of beating, a lot of thrashing, but I got them out. Well guys, it's the next day working on the sawmill. Yesterday was an adventure, to say the least. Sometimes when you work on stuff, things just doesn't go right. And sometimes the best at heart plans, they don't go right either. And that's kind of what happened yesterday. First thing that happened, you saw it, broke that bit off in the hole. Then I started drilling again and trying to drill holes through this stuff, and actually put a couple of grease fittings in, and it wouldn't take grease, and it just one issue right after another. Sometimes I'm my own worst enemy. I try to think about things as a condition of time. Time is money, as they say. Every hour, every minute I spend working on this machine, or I spend working on that machine back there, or another machine, or anything, is time that I am not making money as a business owner. And some of that is just to be expected. If you're going to be in business on your own, no matter what you're doing, if you're sawing lumber, if you're hauling gravel, if you're digging dirt, if you're painting houses, there's going to be time where you have downtime. You're going to have to stop, and you're going to have to work on things. If you're running a sawmill, you're going to have to stop, sharpen blades. That's evident. You got to do that every day. But then you got to also stop. You got to change oil. You need to change filters. You need to grease the machine. Then if you got a busted hydraulic line, you got to fix that. If you're hauling gravel, you got to do the same things for your truck. If you're a painter, you got to wash your paint brushes out or whatever. So, that's all part of the overhead, in my opinion. That's all part of that unknown number that every business owner would love to get their hands around and get a firm understanding of what that number is, so you can plan for it. And so when I'm thinking through these things, when I'm thinking, okay, I need to fix a sawmill, I'm trying to think in the most efficient manner of utilizing time, right down to where I've got it set up at and working on it. Thankfully, I've got this building now, and it's May the 2nd, 2024, and it's starting to get hot here where I live. It's about 86 degrees now, and thankfully there's low humidity today. Give it about September and you'll be dying out here. But up until now, I haven't even had a place to work on this machine. I'd have to be out there in the sun working on it, and that's tough. But anyway, I would try to plan for that. I would try to plan, okay, I need to set this machine up here. I need to take it up to the building. I need to change the oil in. I need to do that. Whatever that most efficient manner is to get that job done as quickly as possible, as good as possible. That's what I was trying to do yesterday with drilling the holes and tapping the holes without having to remove any of that stuff. Well, that was a great plan, great intentions, but the world is full of great intentions that don't ever turn out to be great results. So what I ended up doing, and I didn't record any of this, I was really aggravated and tired and hot and had grease all over me. What I ended up doing, I just took all of it out. That's what I should have done to start with. I know, and that's probably people's out there, you're probably looking and say, I told you so. Well, that's fine, you told me so. I agree. Sometimes the quickest way is the longest way around. It goes a lot with, actually with money. And I tell people this a lot too. When I was 16, I worked for a man and he built houses. And he taught me a lot about carpenter work and building cabinets, and he was a craftsman. He wasn't a carpenter, he was a craftsman. And those of you out there who do woodworking, you will understand what I'm talking about. He was one of the best mentors I've ever had in my life. And he would always say, he had a saying that said, the cheapest way is the wrong way. And he's right. That comes down to your business. A lot of times, I mean, the economy's hard right now. Everybody's suffering. Inflation is killing everybody. It's hurting The man over here, and I'm speaking hypothetically, the man over here who's wanting to build him a barn, and inflation is costing his groceries to be outrageously high, and he's trying to feed his family, and he can't feed his family for the same amount, so he's having to rob from his money he was going to build his barn. Well, when he was going to build his barn, he was going to buy lumber from me. Well, with him not buying lumber from me, that hurts my business, hurts my financial situation. So I can't spend money. Well, I may need tires for my trailer. Well, I don't have the money to buy the tires right now, so the guy down the road who sells tires, I'm not giving him any business. And it goes on and on and on and on. And I understand that. But going back to what my craftsman mentor told me, the cheapest way is the wrong way. And he's right. You get what you pay for. A lot of times people will call me, and I don't keep a lot of pine here. One reason is because it goes bad so fast. The other reason is because people just don't understand how I price my lumber. They'll call and they'll say, I want the cheapest thing I can get. And usually my answer will be, well, if you want cheap lumber, you need to go to Lowe's, because they're buying it in so much quantity they can sell it at a bare minimum price. And when I explain to them how the board foot price of what I sell per board foot is actually cheaper than what Lowe's sells theirs per board foot, and the difference is a 2x4 that I cut, a full cut 2x4, it's got more wood in it. They understand, and then they, we usually can do business. But the cheap way is the wrong way. That's what applies sometimes to doing things like this. The fast way is the wrong way. And I'm sorry I'm rambling. I'm gonna get to what I'm wanting to get to, but there's a lesson in everything. When I pulled all that out, it did give me a chance to get that broken tap off. I just took the part down to the basement where my welder is. Like I said, I don't have no power out here. And I just kept spot welding a little weld right on top of that tap until it got it big enough where I could get a pair of vice grips on it, and I backed it right out. So let me show you what I did. All right, here's one of the parts that I was working on yesterday, and this is actually the one that had that broken tap in it. It was this hole right here, I believe, was the one. I need to tighten that up. I believe that was it right there. But what I did, I got the tap out and drilled it out, tapped it. For whatever reason, I didn't tighten it up. I got to do that. But I just went ahead in those other grease fitting holes where Woodmizer had pressed those fittings in. I just went ahead and drilled them out and put grease fittings in them. That's the kind of thing where I think the more the merrier. But I did that on this part, and did it on a couple other parts. All right, I want to talk to you a minute about this pin. This pin goes with this piece of metal here. It's got these two ears welded on it. That goes there on that, and then this pin goes through both of them. Then on this side, it's got another snap ring that holds it in. So that pin's supposed to grease this joint. All right. When I was working on this yesterday, all these grease fittings here were all pressed in grease fittings, every one of them. I got pressed in grease fittings on the loading arms, pressed in grease fittings basically everywhere else. So I got this pin out, and I thought, well, I'm just going to go ahead and take the grease. If I'm fixing all the rest of these, I might as well fix this one. So I knocked the grease fitting out of it, and when I did, I noticed it had threads in it. I thought, uh-oh, that's not good. So I proceeded to drilling it out on the other end. I'm not showing it to you for a reason right here. I proceeded to drill it out on the other end. This is hardened steel. I didn't have a drill bit that it would even scratch it, much less tap it. So now I've got this pin with the grease fitting knocked out of it, thinking, what the heck am I going to do? So what I did, I took a quarter, and it doesn't, you can't tell because I put this on a lathe and I ground it to make it look a little better. I took a 1/4 nut. The grease fittings I'm using have 1/4 28 threads. So I took the tap and went down a 1/4 nut and just re-threaded it. It was good enough for a grease fitting. And then I took that nut and I welded it back on the top of this pin. And when I did that, I chucked it in the lathe and took a grinder and cleaned it up a little bit and painted it. But the reason why I'm showing you that is sometimes your best intentions, what you're doing, leads to more trouble. I didn't know that was not a pressed-in fitting. Evidently, the way that this is made, they machine this and drill it and thread it and then case harden it. Now, the odd thing about all this is mild steel. You can drill this all day long. This is case hardened. So when that's in that, and obviously this goes on first and then the pin goes through it, what's going to happen? The pin is not going to wear, or wear very little. It's going to wear this part out. So it seems to me like you should use a mild steel pin and case harden the ends of these eyelets. And I don't know much about case hardening or the hardening process. That's a science in itself. I do know you can heat this and then put it in oil and that will harden it some. But on a manufacturing level, a big scale manufacturing level, I'm not sure how they would do it. But the reason why I'm telling you this is eventually that pin is going to wear that out. I don't care how much grease you put in it. And especially this piece. You know, thankfully, I've got an extra one of these. And the reason why is when one of the stops, the pipe off the bottom of the stop broke, and I called Woodmizer. They thought I was talking about this. So they sent me an extra one of these. I got an extra one. But when you put this in this, and you put this pin in here, and you grease it, the grease is going to go in the center, and it's going to come out in between here and here. Very little is going to get in these ears, I call them, on the sides of this. So over time, this piece is going to wear out just because the pin is harder than this. If it was the other way around, these pieces wouldn't wear, the pin would wear out. You just order a new pin, put in it, and you're fine. But the way it's designed and the way it's built, and I'm not complaining about I'm not saying the way it's built is wrong. I'm just saying that in my mind, it would seem to me, if you're really going to build something to last, to harden the parts that I guess are the most expensive or the hardest to get off if you can, and leave the consumable parts like a pin to soft steel so it could easily be replaced. But anyway, enough on that. I'm going to set the camera up over here and I'm going to start putting it together. Right there is a chunk of steel. I'll have to pick that up in a minute and replace it. Now, I've got a hole drilled right here that I need to go ahead and tap it for another grease fitting. All right down there is the hole I'm talking about. And really the only reason why I decided to drill another one in there, it's the grease fitting is still in it. You can see it down there. Can't get my hand down there. It's right down here. But it's kind of awkward to get down there and get a grease gun on it when you could put a fitting straight in from the top and just go right down through it. Plus, if that other fitting pops out, I'm not going to be able to grease it, so I'm going ahead and doing it now. I've got the hole drilled, so now I'm just going to tap the hole out. Turn it in until it starts getting a little tight and back it off. Do it again. Then I know I probably should be using cutting oil for this, but no more than what this is, it's all right. Yeah, I tell you, where's your wrist at when you're doing it with one hand, though? All right, we got her through there. Yeah, you should be able to spin it with one finger. There we go. Okay, guys, we got it all put back together on this one side. Give me something to point with. This is that one piece here. I think that was the fitting right down in there. That was the fitting right there that the tap broke off in. So I got tap grease fittings in every joint. And right here's the one that I had to weld the nut on and tap it. It turned out pretty good. So now I'm gonna set up the camera and let you watch me grease it. Now, if there's ever been one job that I despise the most about working on equipment, it's definitely greasing it. Now, I don't know what it is about a grease gun, and especially this Milwaukee. I think it's because it needs a wider base on the bottom or something. But it don't make no difference where you put the dang thing. It wants to fall. And the end of it wants to get in the ground so bad it can't stand it. So let's see if this takes grease. So there, yeah, boys. Just like it's supposed to. But this hose, it's like electricity. It wants to get to the ground so bad it can't stand it. Yep, we got grease there. That made that a lot easier going straight down instead of coming in this way. Now this one's easy because you got a place to put your hand. And in my opinion, the easier it is you make to grease it, the more likely it's going to get greased. One of them, it seems like I needed to tighten it up. Let me check this real quick. I wish somebody would invent a dang grease gun that you wouldn't get grease all over your hands. Yeah, I thought I tightened those up, but I don't guess I did. Either that or I don't think the ratchet's going down, the socket's going down on it. They feel tight to me. That's loose, definitely. Well, I thought that was the right size, but Somebody must have switched it last night. That little troll runs around here and does stuff like that all the time. Seems like. Which yesterday evening when I got done, I was really tired and aggravated. My grandma used to tell me, if you get aggravated at something, best thing to do is stop, leave it alone, get away from it, think about it, take a shower, rest a while, take a nap, whatever, and then go back to it later, and it just goes so much easier. And she was a wise old woman. I miss her a lot. Yeah, that's tight. That one's tight. That one's tight. All right. So let's shoot some grease into this one on this side. Yep, it's coming out. I think I already greased that side actually. Yeah, I greased this side too. All right. Well, this side right here is officially done. We got our pin in, we got this greased. Got this bottom pin on this side right in here greased. Got the bottom pin on this side greased. And got this top pin here greased. So this side here is good to go. All right, the arm on this end of the mill is going to be tough. We're going to remove this arm here, just like we did down there, because we got to get to all this linkage down in here to replace those fittings. Again, the problem is right here. Sorry guys. Right down in this crack, you can see it right there, that black end of that pin. That black pin's got a bolt through it. That's the pin that goes through all this. That's got to come out for that to go down. And in order for that pin to come out, this hydraulic box has got to go down. So what I thought I would do is set a floor jack under that box. And the best I can tell, it's got 3 bolts holding it. It's got a bolt here, and then there's 2 bolts back here. It's got a piece that looks like 2-inch pipe welded on the back of it with a bolt going through it, and that pipe the bolt goes through the center of the pipe, and the pipe seats against this piece of 2x4 tubing. It looks to me like if those 2 bolts there was taken out and this 1 bolt here, that box would sit down. So I'm gonna set up and I'll record it and we'll see what happens. More than likely it's not gonna go the way I think it's gonna go, but heck, nothing else ever does anyway, so let's give it a try. All right, folks, I've got me a floor jack sitting underneath that hydraulic box. That box, well, you know what? I'm going to take the lid off of it and let y'all look down inside of it. I'm sure somebody out there is like, man, I'd like to see what's inside that. So I'm going to do that just for you guys. Now, the reason why I know what's under this lid is because I've been into this a lot. Sorry about that. Let me come on that side. Well, one good thing, it's a lot cleaner than I thought it'd be in there. this is where all the electric solenoids are. That's what these things are right here. This is a what's called a electric over hydraulic unit. All those buttons you push up there controls. Sorry, I don't mean to get my finger in the way. I'm trying to hold the phone so I can point. All those buttons you push controls all these solenoids. And this is some of them. This is for the bed controls. And then you got a lot of wires, things going on over here. There's a ECU there. Real complicated. Now, the reason why I've been in this thing a lot is because of this. When I bought this sawmill, it didn't even have 200 hours on it. This solenoid valve right here went to leaking, and it was blowing. I'd take it apart and the O-ring would be cut. I put a new O-ring in it. It would run about 10 hours, it'd go to leaking. Put a new O-ring in it. And the mill's under warranty now. And I've got it on jobs. And again, when this thing's not running, I'm not making money. And so I call Woodmizer and I tell him about it. And just to be honest about it, I was pissed off. And I told him, I said, look, I keep hitting O-rings in this thing. It keeps cutting them. And I talked to some guy at Woodmizer, quality control guy. I've talked to him 2 or 3 times. And he said, you know, sometimes we have had some of those where those solenoids, there was something wrong with them. They had a burr on the inside on them, a nick, something that was cutting the O-rings. He said, we have it. This is not the first time I've seen it. Let me just send you a whole thing. So he sent that whole, this right here's the electric solenoid. And he sent that whole block, all that. And I put that in, and it hasn't leaked a single time. So there was something wrong with that other one that was causing that trouble. But like I said, my mill is always sitting out in the weather, and that's pretty clean in there as far as I'm concerned. There's a little bit of dust built up in the corners, and I'll get it out, but take a leaf blower and blow it out. But my mill's always set outside just because I haven't had a shed to put it under. But now I do, and hopefully those days are gone. But that's what's inside that box. So the bolts that I'm taking out, had to take that lid off anyway, didn't even realize it. I gotta take this nut off right here, and that nut off right there. And I just realized that when I brushed up against this right here, I heard a piece of paint flake off. And I got thinking about that paint. What is happening with this paint is Woodmizer is thinning it so much to save money. The paint is, I don't even know what to compare it to as far as thickness goes. A sheet of paper, it's not thick enough. It's a thin, that's why it's not sticking, plus it ain't got any primer under it. But anyway, enough about that. So I'm gonna set the phone back up, and we're gonna take those 2 bolts out, that one, and that one. I've got the jack jacked up tight against the bottom of that. So hopefully what will happen is when I take the bolts out, I can loosen the handle of the jack and just let that whole thing sit down enough to where I can get that one pin right there. It's right in there. I can get that pin out. There's again. Man, you just touch it, it comes off. know what some people's thinking. They're thinking, why ain't you using the ratchet end of that wrench? It's tore up. It's a gear wrench, and I like their tools, and it's supposed to have a lifetime warranty. I'm not sure where to take it to, though. The best tools, if you can find them, are the ones, those old, for the money. I'm talking for the money now. Snap-on, you know, is a great tool, but good Lord, I can't afford one ratchet on it, much less a whole set. But for the money, I think the best tools you can find is go to like a flea market or somewhere like that, or watch yard sales. And if you can find somebody that's got those old Craftsman wrenches, I'm not talking about the Craftsman that they sell today at Lowe's. Those aren't what I'm talking about. Those things are made in China. I was working at Lowe's when that deal went down. But the old Craftsman, they're kind of the handle's sort of boxy looking, kind of thick, and they'll say right on it, made in USA. Those are good tools for the money. I've got a friend here. One of these days I'll go do a video at his place. I had a bunch of lumber for him, and his name's Chris Gross, and he does auction sales. He did one back last summer, I guess. The guy had a bunch of Craftsman tools. I bought 3 boxes full of wrenches, sockets, some ratchets, 3 boxfuls. I mean, all you could carry in 3 big boxes for 75 bucks. Yeah, where'd that wrench go? I know y'all see it right there. It is. I knew y'all was hollering. I could feel it. Look right here. Show. Now these old Woodmizers, I see them for sale a lot of times. They still got the paint on. They're pink, where they faded, but they still got the paint on. And like I said, I believe I was working on this yesterday, and to me it was yesterday. To you guys, it was just a few minutes ago. But I said that I know a lot of you have probably got these mills on order, and you're very excited to get them. And hold on, man. Let me get that out. This ratchet, that drives me crazy. I know you're very excited to get them, and I'm excited for you. I was excited when I got mine. And I'm sorry if you're seeing something on these videos here that depress you or question your decision. They're good meals. I mean, come on, socket. They're good meals. I've had 2 of them. I've cut a lot of lumber with them. And when you got them set up right, they cut good lumber. And, you know, the secret's the blade anyway. It don't make much. You can have a homemade mill that costs $500 to build and put a good blade on it. It'll cut just as good lumber as this one will. But I told you guys, and this is true, I'm the mayor of Realville. If you buy these mills, it's like I tell people all the time, they have a lot of questions about them. Customers are very interested in them. And my first thing I tell them is if you can't work on them, don't buy them. I lie you not, which I don't lie anyway. That's just kind of an introduction of something I'm getting ready to say. That ain't got enough oomph to do it. But I kid you not, how's that? That sounds better. When I picked this mill up, I'm not going to say who it was. I live in North Carolina. You guys can figure out where I got it from. But when I picked this mill up, the guy that was showing me how to run it, he didn't know how to run half of it, first of all. The second of all, this was his words. He said, if you have something wrong with the engine, don't bring it back. Don't bring it to me. Take it to somebody who knows how to work on it. And I said, well, who do you take it to? And he said, John Deere dealerships have Yanmars in them. That is straight up the gospel, as we say. I didn't like that answer, but I guess in his defense, if I took his thing down there every time and something broke on it or went bad, this is the only thing that ever worked on for a long time. But you gotta get in there and learn how to work on this stuff. I can't get my wrench on the bolt. Come on, wrench. It went down some, I could see it. I'm worried that this will make it leak. I'm hoping that it don't. But knowing how things work around here, and my luck, something will go leaking after doing this. All right, I saw that thing move down a little bit, so we may be in business right here. And one other thing I got thinking about, I'm sorry for talking through a lot of this stuff. I know a lot of people probably don't like that. They would rather just watch somebody work and be quiet. But I'm wanting people to learn, and I'm wanting, hopefully, my grandkids could watch this one day and learn how to work on something. And if I don't tell them what I'm doing and explain things, just watching ain't gonna do me any good. So let's see if I can ease this down. Yep, she's going down. Now, we don't want to drop it too fast because there's a lot of lines over there and I don't know how much play they've got. Let's see if it'll go on down. Yeah, just don't want to go down on the side that I need it to go down on. Just hold it. Probably a clamp somewhere. Wire tie, something like that. Yeah, I see one clamp right there, but let's see if it'll go on down. I'm getting pretty close there. The only problem is, well, it's not going to go nowhere. This black bar goes way down the side of it. And I got my jack a little far on that side too. Oh, I think we're in business. Just a little more. Come on. Yep, there she went. I believe I can get it out right there. That's the pin that we're trying to get out. That's a lot of work just to move one pin. All right, I'm gonna take just a little break and stop recording because I'm gonna run out of battery. Some of this stuff in here you've already saw me take apart on the other one. It's just repetitive stuff, like over here, those big nuts, you saw me put those back on a few minutes ago. Right up here is that little pin that I had to weld the 1/4-20 nut on and rethread it because it's that hardened steel. The piece that we're trying to get out is right in here. And I also got to get that arm right there off. So I'm not going to record that just because you've seen it before, and when we start drilling and tapping, I'll be back. Okay, I'm going to stop the video right here. We're already over an hour long, and by the time we get to the very end of it, it's probably going to be 2 hours long. So this will be a good spot to stop. I'm trying to keep the videos at least an hour or shorter. And anyway, there'll be a part 2 to this. Be on the lookout for it. And I really appreciate you watching. If you enjoyed the video, please subscribe, give it a thumbs up, please share, and I really do appreciate you watching. I hope everyone's doing well and have a great day, and just go out and try to fix something. Thank you.